So I recently turned 25. Editing Hexa here. So I actually filmed this video last year. I turned 25 in 2023 and 26 in March 2024, but I kept the title because 25 lessons in 25 years is catchier than 26 lessons in 26 years. So anyway, procrastination 1, Hexa 0. But enjoy the video. I've kind of been dreading this birthday because I feel like, I would finally be closer to 30 than I am to 20, and I'm reaching that age where I'm kind of expected to have some things figured out. And there were a lot of things that I had hoped that I would have figured out by 25, which I don't have figured out. So, I think this birthday really came with a lot of anxiety and a lot of pressure on myself. But then I realized that while I may not have met all of my expectations, I have spent the last 10 years or so really growing as a person, and I've worked out a lot of my insecurities. I've worked on my mental health a lot. I've learned a lot about human nature and really done a lot of self-reflection and worked on my empathy and worked on kind of like understanding why people are the way they are, why relationships are the way they are, why I have reacted in some of the ways that I have reacted in the past, and what I can do to overall become a more mentally stable person and like a happier person and be better at enforcing my boundaries and all of this kind of stuff. And so I decided that despite the fact that I do still consider myself to largely be, a work in progress and a little bit of a hot mess, I would still make this video and kind of talk about my top 25 lessons that I've learned in 25 years. So buckle in. This is gonna be a long one, so like grab a drink, grab a snack, or whatever. But I hope it's gonna be interesting and helpful for you, and I really do think it will be. Lesson number 1 is never go looking for someone to love you when you don't love yourself. I think because of like media and kind of the movies that we've grown up with as girls and like that whole Prince Charming ideal, I really just had this notion that I would find someone to love me and they would save me from myself. That they would somehow learn to love all of my flaws and learn to love all the things that I hated about myself, and that somehow that would fix me and like fix my depression and everything would be okay. And that's really dangerous. That's a really dangerous place to put yourself in, because the thing is, when you don't have self-love, you do not attract relationships that are good for you, in my opinion. There are certain types of people who are narcissists, who are abusers, who are manipulators, and they feed off of that energy of insecurity and vulnerability, because it's just very easy to manipulate people when they are not in a good place mentally. And I fell into that trap a lot of times. I was in a lot of bad relationships with bad people who didn't care about me. I'm not saying that every single relationship ever that you're gonna get into when you're in a bad place is gonna turn out badly, but one way is you end up with someone who's manipulative and abusive, or the other way is you end up with someone who's really a nice person, and so they'll try to fix you, but that desire to be fixed and to get better has to come from the inside. And so ultimately, I think relationships like that, even if it's with a good person, are gonna blow up because you're not receptive to their attempts to help you. Even the kindest, nicest person runs out of patience at some point. It's a lot of pressure to put on a person, and you should just never make it somebody else's responsibility to love yourself. I think once I realized that, and once I moved into this place of like, I want a relationship, but I don't need a relationship, and I want to be loved by someone else, but I love myself also without someone else, that is when I started to know my own worth and actually have relationships that were good for me and that were positive and healthy. You never want to put yourself in a situation where you stop loving yourself because someone else stopped loving you. Started off with a heavy one. Lesson number 2 is stop trying to save people who don't want to be saved. This is very related to the previous point. Also, make sure you're not that person who sees someone who's vulnerable, who's not loving themselves, who's not taking proper care of themselves, and then you come in and like you're gonna save their world. Because first of all, it's kind of condescending, I think, to think that, like, you know best. And I think people who have that kind of savior mentality, they tend to sometimes have a slightly, like, overinflated ego. And, like, I've been this person as well. You know, I have been that person who seems to attract people with problems, you know, and friends with problems who I really cared about and I really wanted to help them, but they didn't want to be helped. That desire to heal, that desire to get better has to come from within. So yeah, stop trying to save people who don't want to be saved, because you're only going to get burned in the process. Lesson number 3 is kind of just the same point in reverse, which is stop waiting for somebody else to save you. I know I kind of talked about that in the relationships point, but this also applies to friendships. There is a certain amount of support and hand-holding from other people that can be helpful, but the overall, like, motivation has to come from within. Otherwise, anybody else's attempts to help you will be in vain, because you're gonna put up your walls and you're gonna be really resistant to it. So if you're kind of in your, like, wallowing phase where you're, like, listening to the angry and the sad music and you're feeling your feelings and you're, like, almost kind of trying to make yourself feel worse, don't also be sitting there and in the back of your mind thinking, someone's got to notice how damaged I am and they've got to, like, come in and save me because I can't save myself. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. Nobody else's attempts to save you are going to be effective if you don't really, like, in your heart want to be saved. So you gotta take that first step and say, like, okay, I've done the sad music and I've done the making myself feel worse and I've done the self-destructive habits and I've done the pursuing bad relationships, and now I want to get better. You carry most of the weight. It's kind of like, you know, the giving a man a fish versus teaching a man to fish. Like, people can give you the fish, like the, you know, the love or the support or the good advice, but it only sticks once you learn to fish. You know, it only sticks once you learn to create that self-love, create that positivity, and pursue that healing and the good habits on your own. Lesson number 4 is to lean into the fear. The only way out is through. And this is something I learned while dealing with my anxiety. I have struggled since, I'd say, about 2016, 2017 with severe anxiety and panic attacks, with agoraphobia. Like, I spent years afraid to leave the house or go anywhere alone, and I am still working through that. Like, I still don't take public transportation for more than, like, 5 bus stops. I hate it. It's really scary. Like, I can feel my heart rate going up just, like, talking about it. But my anxiety taught me that you have to lean into the fear, because say this is, like, your fear line, you know, like, in here is safe and out there is danger, or what you perceive as danger or what you fear. Every time that you reach this line and you take a step back, your world gets smaller, because you reinforce the fear to your mind. You know, you tell your brain, you're right, outside there is dangerous. I'm not gonna go there. You shrink, and your world shrinks and your possibilities shrink. You end up just, like, slowly becoming a shell of who you used to be. It's hard to notice those things in regular life. Like, if you're a regular person who doesn't have an anxiety disorder, maybe it's hard to notice those things. But with anxiety, it really becomes clear. Like, you really see how it hurts you to put those limitations around yourself. The more you, like, wrap yourself up in bubble wrap, the less you're able to do. And it sucks. Facing your fears and taking the leap is, I think, almost always gonna be rewarded. Lesson number 5 is kind of an expansion on that and an extension of that point about leaning into the fear, and that is that the worst possible outcome is not failure, but regret and kind of, like, unanswered questions. The worst possible feeling, I think, is not, you know, I tried this and it failed. It's, I wanted to try this, but I was too scared to, and now I'll never know. What if that beautiful person that you wanted to ask out on a date might have actually said yes, but you'll never know because you never asked? What if your business could have been a huge success and could have made you millions, but you'll never know because you didn't try. Take a certain amount of precaution, you know, especially with decisions where money is involved. Have some savings so that if it all goes to shit, you know, you're not gonna be homeless. I don't advise, you know, like digging yourself a giant hole that you can never get out of in the interest of pursuing your curiosities, because that's not smart. But I do encourage you to pursue your curiosities. I don't think our brains like unanswered questions, and I don't think our brains like to feel unfulfilled. And so for that reason, if there's something that you want to try, a curiosity that you have, anything that you want to pursue, give it a go. Like figure out what it is that you need to build a safety net in case it goes wrong. Try to find a way to do it. And I hope it goes well. Lesson number 6, money is not worth spending time apart from your family. When we lived in Shanghai, I was occasionally getting like modeling jobs, performing jobs, like as a singer. I was doing some like teaching and tutoring jobs. And this one year, my family, like my mom and my sister, wanted to go home, like fly home to Romania for Christmas to be with my grandparents. And I had several opportunities to make some cash. And so I decided to stay alone in Shanghai. I was alone in Shanghai in an empty house for Christmas and New Year's that year, just so that I could make, like, I don't know, convert 1,000 Chinese yuan to dollars. That's crazy. I cannot believe, like, that was such a huge amount of money to me at that time. It really felt like it was worth it. And it totally wasn't. My grandma had a friend who was like her best friend, and she had cancer. And a few months after that, she passed away. And that would have been my last chance to see her. And, you know, this was like an important person in my life because we were always like going over to their house. And she was a person who I had known my whole life growing up. And it was really, I really like think back on that with a lot of regret. That's why I advise anyone who has like a job to build up like a fuck you fund, like a certain amount of savings, so that if your boss is like, you have to work Christmas or like you have to work on your kid's birthday, you can be like, listen, man, like either you give me the day off or I'm quitting. Like I really think that it is just not worth it to stay in a job that makes you choose your job over your family. You should never have to do that ever. Lesson number 7, don't be mean to your family. I think this is particularly relevant if there's any like teenagers watching this. If you have lived up until this point in your life without ever saying, I hate you, or like, I hope you die to one of your parents, I strongly advise you not to ever say things like that, no matter how much anger you're feeling at the time, because there will come a day when you will sorely regret it and really like hate that you were such a little ungrateful shit and that you said such horrible things. And like, yeah, you know that you didn't mean it, and whoever you said it to probably also knows that you didn't mean it, but you really have to think about like that person's gonna be gone one day, or like who knows like what's gonna happen in the future, and you're gonna remember the things that you said when you were angry. I heard this quote once, I think it was like in a movie or something. Maybe it's a quote from a book, I don't know, but it was something about words spoken in the fire of anger are never words from the heart. I think that's very true. I think most people know that people say horrible things that they don't mean when they're angry, but it still sticks with you. And so now I kind of like, I try to think before I speak and just consider it like, when I'm not angry, is it possible maybe that I am going to feel like a horrible person for saying what I'm about to say? And if that's the case, then maybe just don't say it. Next up, we have some basics. Lesson number 8, wear sunscreen. Wish I had started this earlier. You don't know what you have until it's gone. And that really applies to good skin and youth. I'm 25. I look 25. I do not look old. I do not feel old. But, you know, I am starting to see like the little teeny tiny little like wrinkles around my eyes and the teeny tiny just like lines on my forehead and stuff. And if wearing sunscreen more like religiously from an earlier age could have helped prevent that, I think I would be very grateful. So I am like starting now to try to get into those good skincare habits, and that's great. And it's never too late to start. Like even if you're 60 years old and you're watching this, like if you haven't worn sunscreen up until this point, start wearing it now. You know, it's never too late, but the earlier you start, the better it's going to be for you in the long run. So wear sunscreen, do a good skincare routine, moisturize your skin, and if you have acne, be aware that acne prone skin also needs moisturizer, and like using all the like bombarding your face with all the possible acids and irritants and like drying ingredients and clay masks and whatever, and no moisturizer is like, that is not the way to go. Trust me, it's probably making your skin worse. I also was guilty of this as a teenager. I used to like try to beat my skin into submission whenever I had acne. And now I realize that like if you're applying like all this acid exfoliating whatever crap on your skin without like replenishing it with a moisturizer, your skin is just gonna know that it's too dry, and it's gonna make more oil to compensate for that, and you're gonna get more acne, and everything just gets worse. Yeah, sunscreen, moisturizer, and like a couple of good active ingredients that match your skincare needs. Lesson number 9, another basic. If you feel a headache coming on, just take the damn painkiller. I have lost so many potentially productive hours because I was like, oh, it's just a minor headache. Like, I don't need to take an ibuprofen or whatever. I'll just like fight through it for no good reason. Like, yeah, I know that as a society, we're a little bit like, you know, undereducated and over medicated kind of thing. So, you know, if you're like popping pills left and right, like every single day, that's definitely not what I'm talking about. If you don't have a pain pill problem, but you're still one of these people who is like, I will not take medicine ever. Like, painkillers are a last resort. Doesn't make sense. Nowadays, if I feel like a slight headache coming on, you know, I drink some water because I might be dehydrated. I eat some fruit or something because maybe I have low blood sugar, and I take an ibuprofen. The headache goes away so soon, like so quickly, that I forget that I was even like on the verge of developing a headache. Whereas when I don't do that, it ends up being like, you know, 3 hours later, I am in pain, and I've been trying to get my work done that whole time, but I cannot focus because my head hurts so bad, you know, like it just keeps getting worse. Why suffer if you don't have to? Lesson number 10, don't allow yourself to slip into a bad work ethic. I am about as anti-hustle culture as they come. Like, you do not owe your boss anything. If you died tomorrow, they would replace you the next day like that, as if you were nothing, as if you never existed. Like, I do not advocate for having this like insane loyalty to like whatever company you work for, or being like, oh, like, oh, we are one big happy family here in the whatever insert giant corporation family. It's nonsense. But having a good work ethic will reward you in so many ways. So I guess what I'm saying is like, hustle for the right reasons. Yeah, don't fall into a bad work ethic, because you're gonna need it at some point, and it is gonna be really hard to get it back if you've lost it. I've unfortunately allowed myself to slip into a bad work ethic, and I've gotten like kind of too comfortable, and it's hard. It's like, it's something that I'm still working to try to correct now. Try to make sure that you're always being productive for like at least 6 hours a day. Protect your work ethic, because you're gonna need it at some point. Lesson number 11, don't get a credit card if you can't use it responsibly. This is one of my biggest regrets of my early adult life. Credit cards are a very dangerous game to play. Never ever spend money that you don't have. You know, they can be a great way to build up your credit score. So like, usually if you pay it back before you have to pay any interest, so before like the 30 days or whatever the terms are, then generally that helps to like build your credit score, and it becomes easier to get like loans or mortgages or whatever. But if you have like poor impulse control, don't get a credit card. It's terrible. Like, I have paid so much interest. It makes me so mad. It's like, what for what? Like, for clothes and bath bombs. Like, it's ridiculous. That's all I'm gonna say about it. If you can't use it responsibly, if you can't pay it back before you're charged interest, don't use a credit card. don't get one. Lesson number 12, don't drink alcohol at a time when you're struggling with your mental health, or any substances actually, like alcohol and drugs. I've never like really done drugs, so I don't have experience with that, but I assume it's kind of the same deal. But with alcohol, it's like I used to go partying, and I used to like go to events and go to bars and like meet with a bunch of people all the time. And drink when I was at my lowest point emotionally, when my depression was at its very worst that it's ever been, because it was like a distraction and I didn't have to be alone. I could put on this like fun party girl persona and everybody loved me. And I had all these like acquaintances, and anywhere I went, I would bump into like at least 5 people that I knew, because I was always like frequenting the same places, and it felt great until, you know, it was the end of the night and like the buzz was kind of wearing off, or the buzz was like increasing and my mental state was getting more unstable, because alcohol is very unpredictable in how it makes you feel. Or like, you know, when I got home from the party and I was alone suddenly after that high. Like people react to alcohol in unpredictable ways. Like sometimes you drink and you get really happy and you're in a good mood and you're dancing on tables and you're having a good time and everything's amazing. And then other times you drink alcohol and you end up like crying about your ex-boyfriend and you're feeling really low and you're really depressed and everything sucks. Alcohol affects emotions in very unpredictable ways, and that's why I'd say that like if you're struggling with any mental health issues, like try to stay sober, because you don't need your inhibitions to be lowered. Because I almost feel like compartmentalizing is something that we all do to some extent, and it's like a means of the brain protecting itself from trauma and bad feelings. Like you kind of like take all the sad stuff and you like hide it somewhere in the back of your brain, and you like tuck it in there in a like a little box. And for me, at least in my experience, I felt like drinking alcohol would weaken the barriers or like the walls of that box, you know? I never knew, like I could never know if it was going to be a good night and I was going to be having fun, or if those walls were going to come down and I was just going to end up crying about like every bad thing that has happened ever. And I really, really have noticed, like I don't really drink anymore. I'm not like sober in the sense that I like don't drink any alcohol ever, because I was never an alcoholic. There's not really a need for me to completely avoid it. I probably drink alcohol like less than once a month, I'd say. And I usually drink it for the flavor, because just I like the taste of it sometimes. But at that time when I was kind of transitioning from being a party girl who drinks and was very depressed to like slowly becoming a non-party girl who doesn't drink and is less depressed, I really noticed it was almost like a linear transition. The less that I drank, the less depressed I was. When I stopped drinking was when I started healing. Alrighty, lesson number 13. Learn to advocate for yourself. Know your worth. Know how much you deserve to get paid, how well you deserve to be treated. Don't let people gaslight you into thinking that there's nothing wrong, or don't let people gaslight you into thinking that you're being treated fairly when you feel like you're not. Self-advocacy applies to like a lot of different areas of life. It's hard to cover it clearly, but like I think medical self-advocacy specifically is one that is very, very easy for me to see, and especially for women, because women are misdiagnosed and women's pain is like not taken seriously much, much more frequently than men's. So especially if you're a woman, but like regardless, like, okay, WebMD will tell you you have cancer like 9 times out of 10. So like take what you learn from the internet with a grain of salt. But also if you have like a recurrent complaint or a symptom that just isn't going away and your doctor is not taking it seriously, like learn to advocate for yourself and say like, okay, if they refuse to test for something and you think that they should test for something, ask your doctor, like tell them, I want you to make a note in my chart that you have refused me this test, because they can do that and they should do that, so that if, you know, you end up being diagnosed with that thing that that test was supposed to test for later down the line, your doctor gets held accountable for not taking your complaints seriously. Nobody knows what it feels like to be in your body better than you. But in all areas of life, if you think that you deserve to be treated better by your partner or by your boss or by your friends or by your parents or by whoever, advocate for yourself and say, hey, like, you're not respecting my boundaries right now, or you're not paying me my worth, or you're making me uncomfortable, and stand by that. And don't let people bully you into taking treatment that is not fair to you. Don't be submissive to the world, because the world will trample you if you give it the chance. So don't give it the chance. Number 14, go to therapy even if you don't think you need to. You know, I think there are good times in life to go to therapy. I think when you're moving out on your own for the first time, or when you're starting college, when you're about to have your first kid, or when you're about to get married, or you're getting into a relationship, I think those are very good times to seek therapy, especially like those transitional periods, times when your life is changing, big decisions are being made, and there's stuff you need to figure out. But it doesn't have to be like, you know, think of therapy as preventative care. Like, you go do a skin cancer screening, not because you necessarily have a suspicious mole, but because you want to make sure that if you do have a suspicious mole, they catch it in time before it becomes like a big issue. Or you go get your teeth cleaned, not because your teeth are like rotting, but because you don't want them to start rotting. Therapy to me is very similar in the sense that, like, we all have little things in our brains. Like, even if you're not mentally ill, even if you're not diagnosable with something, we all have like little things in the back of our heads that affect us in ways that a lot of people might underestimate. And so I think therapy is really important for giving you that opportunity to see those issues for what they are, and just like unload that and think about it and analyze it and understand yourself a bit better. I think understanding ourselves is hugely important. Your relationship with yourself is the most important relationship in your life. And that's kind of like what therapy, I think, attempts to improve, is the relationship with yourself. I know that, you know, this is a very like privileged thing to say, because unfortunately a lot of people in a lot of countries do not have free and open access to therapy. If you have the means, if you're able to get therapy, I would really highly recommend it for anyone. And there's also that saying, like, I go to therapy because of the people who refuse to go to therapy, like, kind of thing. Or I need therapy because of the people who refuse to go to therapy. So, you know, make sure you are not that person who is causing other people to need to go to therapy because you're like insane and you don't realize it. I'm sorry, that's probably like a very polarizing way to look at it, but it does matter how you and your behavior affects other people. Obviously, those who need to hear this the most don't care, like people with narcissistic tendencies, sociopathic tendencies, like they don't really care if what they say or do negatively affects other people. But everybody has neurotic tendencies to at least some extent. Everybody has certain things that they can work on to become a better person and a better friend or partner or parent or whatever. And it's important to learn to deal with those things and to face them. I'm getting cold. Okay, lesson number 15. If you're struggling to be productive, reset your energy. This is kind of a little thing, but yeah, if you're trying to be productive, if you're trying to get something done and you're just like not able to do it, it's probably because you need a little bit of an energy reset. For me, it oftentimes means I need to clean my desk or my room, my environment that I'm trying to be productive in. Or you might just need to like get up and go for a walk, or go get a coffee, or just like take a break, or relax for a minute, or take a shower. Taking a shower is like amazing. I really feel like a new person when I come out of the shower. And sometimes if I feel very like stuck in my energy, if I'm having a hard time getting that forward momentum going, washing myself and cleaning my environment is like the biggest helper. It really is. So that's just like a small piece of advice. Like whenever you're having a hard time like starting something or just being productive, getting things done, figure something out. Like try to look inward and see like, okay, what's like really wrong here? Because something in me is stuck. Walk, snack, nap, shower, clean your room. Those are some of my top like go-tos for when I'm struggling to be productive. Oh my God, this is such a big one. So number 16, your so-called superiors don't have shit figured out. The older I get, the more angry I become at the experience of being a child and the experience of being young. The dehumanizing stuff that you have to go through when, you know, you're like under somebody else's thumb. Everybody has shit, and certain people who have shit end up in positions of power where they have power and influence over somebody else. Don't get me wrong, like there are mentally stable, conscientious, empathetic bosses, teachers, principals, parents, politicians even, but a lot of them are not those things. And they end up in positions of power, and all of those issues, all of that shit that they have not dealt with ends up descending upon their inferiors like a ton of bricks in very harmful ways. There are a lot of teachers who are extremely cruel, and yet, you know, children walk through life being told that you have to listen to your teachers. Your teachers know what's best for you. And that's not always true. It can be the case with parents. It can be the case with priests, rabbis, whatever. And it can also be the case with bosses. You know, you enter the real world and you're like some little mouse in the company in the entry-level position, and you've got supervisors and managers and bosses and whatever who are supposed to be there to guide you and to help you become better, but really they're just like dictators, you know? They just manipulate that position of power for their own gain and to make themselves feel better. Okay, so my birthday was in March. I filmed the first part of this video in April, and I'm filming the second part of this video in December. So, you know, clearly 25 has not been the age of overcoming procrastination just yet. But yeah, I got interrupted when I started filming this video, and then, you know, I was moving back and forth between my place and my boyfriend's place. Then I went traveling in Sweden, then I went to Romania, then I don't know, it was just never the right time to sit down and film this, but I was determined to finish this video. So here I am, back again, committing to finishing this video. The value is still there. So let me just continue this video from where we left off. And the last point was your superiors don't have shit figured out. And I still think that's true. If someone who is supposed to be your teacher, your mentor, or your leader is treating you badly, that is a reflection of their poor leadership and their poor resource management and people management skills, not necessarily a reflection of your own inadequacy. And of course, this is not always true. Take all of it with a grain of salt. There does need to be an element of personal accountability. It's not always down to bad leadership. However, don't always assume that because somebody is treating you badly, it's because you're bad. Especially when you're a child or you're at the very beginning of a career, people are supposed to be helping you. People are supposed to be supporting you, supposed to be guiding you. And if you are not thriving in an environment in which you're supposed to be learning, a lot of the times that's down to poor mentorship and poor teaching. And the people who are responsible for your well-being and for your education, your ability to do your job, not doing their jobs correctly. When people end up in positions of leadership who really shouldn't have that position and shouldn't have that level of responsibility for other people, they know that, and their gut instinct is to cover their own ass. And usually they do that by undermining and belittling the people who are beneath them. A bad boss is going to blame their employees for being bad employees, whether or not that's true. A bad teacher is going to blame their students and say that they're not studying hard enough, whether or not that's true. It doesn't necessarily make things better to know this. You know, you can try to be a whistleblower, but it doesn't always work. Nothing necessarily always is gonna change just because you know that it's not your fault. But what is gonna change is your relationship with yourself and your level of self-esteem. If you're able to recognize that things going wrong are not your fault and you're not entirely to blame for it, it helps you maintain a high opinion of yourself, as you should have, and kind of break out of that cycle of just self-blame and self-loathing and allowing people to treat you badly when you don't deserve it. I'm gonna turn down this light because it's kind of blinding me and my brain is too tired for this much brightness. Okay. I hope that's fine. I hope you can still see me. Point number 17, do dumb shit while you're still young and there's still a safety net there to catch you, because low-key, it's kind of a rite of passage and it'll help to get it out of your system for when you're ready to be a grown-up. Case in point, I grew up in Shanghai where underage drinking is pretty much the norm. Most of my friends were already like going to clubs and bars and getting wasted when they were like 14. I joined the party late at like 16, 17-ish. But by the time I was 19 years old, like that was it for me. I no longer drink alcohol hardly ever. I no longer find being drunk to be fun or funny or exciting or pleasant or any of that stuff. Meanwhile, if you look at college students in the US who aren't allowed to start drinking until they're like 21 years old, they're like out there getting alcohol poisoning on the regular, like all the way through their 20s. And it's just so dumb. I'm sorry. Like, I cringe when I see full-blown adults acting like teenagers getting drunk for the first time. But the point is, being young is about making mistakes. Like, keep in mind, okay, some mistakes you can't come back from. There are some lines that you should never cross. So I'm not saying, like, go out there and be stupid and irresponsible just because you're young. But you're allowed to make some mistakes. You're allowed to do some dumb shit. You're allowed to kind of push boundaries a little bit and, see what's out there. Every once in a while, when you have that like impulsive teenage/young adult urge to do something stupid, maybe you should just do it. Because, it's like fuck around and find out, You're probably gonna find out that thing you had so much curiosity and excitement about that you really wanted to do wasn't really as fun as you imagined it to be, and now you've got it out of your system and you're never gonna want to do that again. And that's kind of better for you in the long run. Sometimes young people hold themselves to an excessively high standard and it leads to them having very poor social skills, not really making their own mistakes and figuring things out for themselves, and it actually leaves them being less resilient and less prepared for life than their peers who were maybe allowed to occasionally put themselves in dumb situations. Getting all the reckless irresponsibility out of your system early on actually means that you'll be ready to be a responsible adult sooner because you've already fulfilled the curiosity of like, I wonder what would happen if I do this stupid thing. You do it, you find out it's probably not really for you, and then it's done and over with and you're ready to move on and be accountable and take responsibility for yourself. Number 18, sometimes protecting your peace means shutting your mouth. This is a lesson that I'm still learning because I'm a very politically inclined person, and there are a lot of things regarding politics and human rights and equality that are very, very important to me and near and dear to my heart, and I find it really hard to not speak out about those issues. But sometimes, you don't go to a neo-Nazi rally and try to tell everybody there that they're wrong because they're already so far gone. They've like made up their minds about the kind of person that they want to be. Trying to dissuade them from that can just be a waste of breath and make you so angry to no further result. Like, nothing is gonna change by you being angry at this person who has no intention of listening to you or seeing things from your perspective. I still to this day have a bad habit of getting into comment wars with misogynists and homophobes on the internet. It reaps no benefits. They are miserable, horrible, hateful people who are not going to change their minds. It makes me very angry knowing that people like that exist, and sometimes I just know that not engaging with them is better for my peace and for my mental health. But it is hard because you don't want to be silent all the time on all issues. You know, as they say, choosing silence is choosing the side of the oppressor, but you also have to keep your own well-being in mind and your own peace in mind. And sometimes you just are not in the right frame of mind to be able to engage with it, and that's okay. Number 19, passions must be nurtured. This is something that I think Elizabeth Gilbert talks about really beautifully in her book Big Magic, which I think is a must read for anyone who is more creatively minded. She kind of talks about creativity and creative ideas as if they're somehow alive, you know, and an idea is born out of the ether and chooses you to bestow itself upon you. And what you do with that is up to you, you know? And if you don't bring that idea to fruition, the idea just flies away and finds somebody else. And I know from experience that there are a lot of passions that I have and have had, and a lot of ideas I've had, which I haven't properly nurtured, and they've left me, you know? I used to write songs pretty frequently, and I stopped, and now it comes to me much harder. And it's really difficult, especially as a multi-passionate person, because I like to say my favorite hobby is trying new hobbies, which is definitely true. Like, I have a lot of curiosities and a lot of things that I want to try and a lot of different passions, and sometimes I just don't have the time to be pursuing all of them at the same time or like within the same season of life. You know, I might not pick up a paintbrush for months and months, but then I get the urge to paint and I really just want to get back into it. But it's always harder when you've taken a long break. And this is something that I'm still figuring out, you know, kind of the value of committing to one or a few passions versus being a jack of all trades. I don't think it's negative. I don't think it's bad to be a jack of all trades, but you do have to acknowledge that you're making a trade-off. When you want to try a lot of different things, it's harder to go deeper with the things that you're doing. But my point is, if you have something in your life that you're passionate about and it brings you so much joy and, you know, it's a creative outlet for you, don't let that go. Nurture it, work on it every day or as often as you can, because that feeling and that joy and that ease of that passion can leave you if you don't nurture it. Point number 20. This is a lesson I learned in therapy, and it was kind of a life-changing realization. Sometimes we don't try our best because we're afraid that our best isn't good enough. Because the thing is, as long as you haven't tried your best, you can tell yourself that the reason why your attempts didn't succeed is because you didn't try your best, right? You can keep living in this limbo of thinking, I can do better. I can achieve this thing. I only haven't achieved it because I haven't really tried, right? But then you run into a problem when you do try your best and you still don't succeed. And that's where the anxiety really sets in of maybe I'm just really inadequate. Maybe this path just really isn't for me. And so sometimes not trying your best is a means of avoiding that pain. I most often find myself procrastinating the projects that are most important to me, like this video, right? This video is a big video for me. I think there's a lot of information in here that's really helpful and really important, and I want this video to do well. And I think I procrastinated making this video because I was afraid it would flop. It probably will flop because nobody's gonna watch like an hour and a half long video about some random girl's 25 lessons she learned at 25. But yeah, so if you find yourself not trying your best, procrastinating things that you want to work on, you should do it anyway, because having an answer, having a real, authentic, honest answer is better than having no answers. And maybe you'll find out that your best is good enough. and you've been wasting so much time not giving it your all when you could have been achieving so much more. Or maybe you'll find out your best isn't good enough, and that's okay too, because that'll give you the feedback you need to get closure and move on with your life and try something else, try a different project, and know that at least you gave it your all. So especially when it comes to things that are really important to you, try your best. Number 21, this is one of my absolute favorites. There's no such thing as a happy bully. I've been on the internet long enough that I've heard the ugliest crap from people, right? Go kill yourself. You're ugly. You're fat. I hate your makeup. Your accent is annoying. You're never gonna be successful. Who do you think you are? Blah, blah, blah. You're gonna end up a crazy cat lady living by yourself, single and alone. There was a time when stuff like that would get under my skin and make me sad and make me question myself, but now it just makes me laugh so hard because I realize how miserable these people are, how miserable anybody is to write stuff like that about you for no reason. You know, you're out here like not hurting anybody, just doing your thing or speaking your truth, and people feel the need to attack you and put you down and bully you and say horrible things. Like, imagine how sad and pathetic and lonely and empty these people's lives are, that is their source of entertainment. There's no such thing as a happy bully, and any crappy thing they say about you is a projection of their own insecurities, and it's so freaking funny to me. I see hate comments and I just laugh because this person just the people who are writing these things don't realize how much they're revealing about themselves and how embarrassing that is. Like, I'm so embarrassed for them. So you do you, boo, and you be a happy, positive beacon of passion and excitement, and be kind to people who deserve it. And these people who feel the need to shit on you because they haven't resolved their own issues, they can just go. They can just go be miserable in their miserable little lives in another room, you know, delete, comment, block. Ignore, stop talking to them, whatever. They're gonna keep being miserable. You're gonna keep being happy. Recite this like a mantra. Happy people make people happy. You can't pour from an empty cup. You can't give that which you do not have. If they are giving misery and hate, it's because they only have misery and hate. But it's not my business, and it's not my problem, and it's not a reflection of me or anything I've done wrong. So once you realize that, it's really, really easy to ignore any kind of hate, whether it's online or in person. It doesn't matter. Nobody's negative words about you should ever shake your faith in yourself. Consider the source. If these words of criticism and hate are coming from a person whose life you would never want to be living, why are you listening? And if it's not constructive, if it's not meant to help you or uplift you in any way, again, why are you listening? Number 22, laziness will make you feel worse, even if you're enjoying yourself in the moment. I have already said I am about as anti-hustle culture as they come. However, I do believe in the merit of hard work, and I've noticed in myself that whenever I have those days where I just don't get anything done the whole day, and I've just been like eating snacks and watching Netflix, there's something that happens in my brain. It's like my brain hasn't expended all of its energy, and it actually feels like, I don't know, it's this like dull, achy, like a really bleh feeling, you know? It's a really, really bad feeling when I know I could have done better, when I had mental energy to put towards something, to put towards building something or making something or editing a video or whatever, and I haven't used it up. I feel so much worse. You know, there is such thing as productive laziness or productively doing nothing. So if you're having a lazy day, ask yourself, is this constructive, productive laziness, or is this just laziness that's gonna leave me feeling really shitty at the end of the day? And if it's the latter, what can you do to course correct? And can you, snap yourself out of that funk and go do something with that brain energy that I know you have? Going through this list 8 months later is so painful because I'm realizing there's a few points in here that are so similar to each other. Number 23 is to learn the difference between an intentional rest day and a mindless one, which I feel like is a little too similar to our point about laziness, but I think you understand. A rest day can be a day to reset and recuperate and rejuvenate, or it can be a day to just waste your time and feel like a couch potato. So when you're taking a rest day, actually plan it. Actually think about the activities that you can do, the restful activities that you can do that are going to fulfill you and make you feel truly rested and like ready to be better. For me, a rest day when I don't do anything. Oh my God, I think I just saw a giant squirrel. Or is that a bird? I think it's a bird. It's a bird. Okay. For me, an intentional rest day that I know is going to make me feel better includes a specific kind of list of things to do. I make myself a hot chocolate because that's a nostalgic, comforting childhood drink for me, and it always perks me up. I clean my room because a lot of the time when I'm feeling drained and stuck in my energy, it's because my space is a total mess. I might take a bubble bath or do like an everything shower and like really, really treat myself and put a lot of care and attention into my skincare, my body care routine, wear clothes that are comfortable and clean and make me feel good. Looking at screens is actually not a very positive way for me to have a rest day, but if I do, I choose something wholesome to watch. I watch a lot of like medical dramas and crime shows and stuff like that, and I really enjoy them, and most of the time they don't negatively affect my mood or my mental health or my sleep or things like that. But if I'm having a rest day and a really intentional rest day, maybe I prefer to watch Winnie the Pooh or The Good Witch or something just like totally drama-free and wholesome, because I just know that's going to be better for me. So yeah, learn the difference between an intentional rest day and a mindless one, and actually plan out the activities that you're going to do as a part of your rest day that are going to replenish your soul. Number 24, another really, really important one. Arrogance is the enemy of improvement, and possibly also the enemy of people liking you. There's a big difference between arrogance and confidence. Arrogant people are unlikable and do not go far in life. Like, yes, there are certain careers that require a bit of like arrogance and overconfidence. But for most people and for most careers, the ability to take criticism, constructive criticism, and learn from others and humble yourself is so much more valuable than confidence and, arrogance. I mean, confidence is a positive thing. Arrogance is overconfidence, an overinflated sense of ego. And there are some very clear statistics on this. People who are less intelligent tend to overestimate their own intelligence, whereas the smartest people around are aware and have an understanding of just how little they know, and they're always willing to learn. The way I think of it is being humble means entering a learning opportunity like a sponge. You're ready to absorb, you're ready to receive. Whereas being arrogant means entering a learning opportunity like a smooth rock. You are resistant to change. You do not want anybody's ideas coming into your head. You are just letting everything bounce off of you, and you're never changing. You're never expanding. Oh my God. If you want to expand, if you want to grow, if you want to get bigger and better, you have to be the sponge. You have to be humble. People like being listened to. People like humility and people who are like real and have an accurate view of themselves. Whereas those who are really arrogant are hardly ever as good or as experienced or as smart as they think they are, and are distinctly unlikable. Anyone who's a good judge of character picks up on arrogance, and it's an immediate turnoff. And a lot of the time, arrogance is actually hiding a very deep-rooted insecurity. So the most arrogant people are actually oftentimes the most insecure. Arrogance is about a need to outwardly portray yourself as knowledgeable and experienced, whereas the strength in being humble is this kind of inner confidence. You know what you know, and you know what you don't know, and you're okay with not knowing everything, and you're ready to learn. And you don't see that as a bad thing, that, you still have things to learn, you still have ways to improve. Point number 25, a fitting one to end on. Self-awareness is a superpower, and if you're cringing at your past behavior, you're growing. There is no relationship more important than the one that you have with yourself. There's nobody else that's gonna be there for you and around you and with you all the time as much as yourself. And understanding yourself is incredibly important. That's why you need to look inwards. You need to analyze, why did I say that? Why does this make me feel that way? How did that, distant childhood memory make me feel? What did I learn from that experience? Why am I the way I am? Therapy can help a lot with this, as can journaling, but it's really helpful to develop that ability to look at yourself and your own behavior and the words you say as an external observer and try to understand the reasoning behind it, the purpose behind it. Why did I say those things? Why did I do those things? What can I learn from that, and how can I do better? I don't know much about coding or building websites, but I think a good analogy for this is being self-aware is fixing lines of code within yourself, creating new iterations of a design for the website that is you. The more that you analyze yourself and your own behavior, the faster you can make improvements, the faster that you can learn those lessons that, oh, I do this kind of thing because of this, and it makes me feel bad when I do that, so I'm gonna stop doing it. For example, I know I'm gonna do things today that I'm gonna cringe at tomorrow. It's no longer just that I'm embarrassed about the things I said and did 5 years ago because I've changed so much since 5 years ago. I'm changing a lot really quickly all the time because every day I'm looking back on my interactions with people and thinking, oh crap, I said that because I wanted attention, but now that I look back on that conversation, I'm kind of embarrassed. Or I reacted negatively in this situation because I felt attacked, and now I realize I was being a hypocrite. So I'm gonna pay more attention to situations like that in the future so that I don't feel like a hypocrite. At some point you realize it's not really a criticism so much as it's just an improvement. You're making yourself better. You're figuring out the bugs in your own system, in your psychology, in the way that you behave, in the way that you speak to people, the way that you are perceived. So that's the final point out of these 25 lessons, is to learn to be more self-aware, do more journaling and thinking and introspection. See yourself as a casual observer or as an objective observer. Flip the script. Allow yourself to ask, what if I'm the villain in this story? I don't want to be the villain, but it's possible I might be. It's possible I might be wrong. Let me have a look at that. Let me experiment with that idea and see what I come up with. Maybe I can do better in the future. There's so much power in that, and it's not an attack. It's an improvement. It's a choice to be better. And that's so empowering. Alrighty, that is everything I had for today's video. Thank you for joining me and Ellie, who's been trying to nap on me this whole time. So those are my 25 lessons that I've learned in 25 years. I don't know if I have a lot to show for my 25 years. I don't know. What do you think? Were these good lessons? Have you learned these lessons already? Or have you taken away something new from today's video? I would love to know, and I really hope that some of these points helped you to figure some things out about yourself and your relationships and your path in life and all that. I'm currently, as I'm filming this, 3 months away from 26, which is really freaking me out. But 25 has been a pretty good year so far. I've broken a lot of boundaries, made a lot of progress in some areas, faced some fears that I never thought I was ready to face, but I did anyways, and I came out victorious. I won't go on too long. I hope this video was helpful. Thank you for joining me for such a long one. I just really hope it was worth it and that you had something positive to take away from this. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, please go ahead and subscribe to this channel. We talk about a lot of different things on this channel, including fashion, beauty, self-care, making money online, the influencer journey, and all that kind of stuff, because I have a lot of different interests and I can't niche down to save my life. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye.